Hello and welcome to this episode of This Week in British History with me, Philippa Lacey-Brule. If you love British history, then you are definitely in the right place. So go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you want to come and find me on other social media, then the links to my Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest are in the show notes. This week we're covering three events which happened in This Week in British History: the Aberfan Disaster, the fatal wounding of Nelson at the Battle of Trafalgar, and the Battle of Agincourt. If you're a fan of the Netflix series The Crown, then you will already be familiar with this next story. It's the Aberfan Disaster of 1966. I think of all the stories that I've covered for this series, and indeed ever, this is one, if not the hardest, that I've ever had to cover. So I warn you now, it's a bit of a tearjerker and it's a bit of a shock if you've not heard of the Aberfan Disaster before. So I warn you now, you can skip this section if you would like. Tragedy isn't a word of large enough proportion for the events of this day, when a spoil heap behind the village of Aberfan gave way in an avalanche of waste from local coal mining operations, which had become a slurry after recent heavy rainfall. 110 cubic metres of slurry slipped with frightening speed into the village. The slip began at 9:15 a.m, just minutes after the local junior school had begun their lessons. The children there were due to break up at 12 midday that day, ready for their half-term holidays. But the avalanche of slurry hurtled towards the village at speeds between 11 and 21 miles an hour and at a height between 20 and 30 feet. The school was buried and 104 children and 5 teachers died that day. This disaster claimed in total 116 children and 28 adults. A generation had been wiped out and many of the survivors suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. Queen Elizabeth II and her husband Prince Philip visited the site 9 days afterwards. The Queen was herself by this point the mother of 4 children aged between 2 and 18 years old. She promised to return to the village, which she did do in 2015 when she opened a new junior school. On the 21st of October 1805, Admiral Nelson was fatally wounded on board HMS Victory at the Battle of Trafalgar near Gibraltar. Nelson was shot by a French sniper who was up on the rigging of a French ship called the Redoubtable. There was some debate as to whether the French sniper knew that he was actually shooting at Nelson. Nelson had famously gone into battle with his full uniform with medals and badges, so he could have been easily identifiable. However, we are in the middle of a battle here. There's chaos, there's smoke, there's moving ships, they're on a ship. So it's not that easy potentially to have even picked him out. However, he was visible, he was on the quarterdeck, and the French sniper shot got him through the left shoulder. It went through his body and it lodged either in his spine or some accounts say his shoulder blade. It was 1:15 in the afternoon. A plaque on the quarterdeck commemorates where Nelson fell, but he did not die. He was taken below deck where the ship's surgeon tried to make him as comfortable as possible, but it was clear that nothing could be done for him. He died at 4:30 in the afternoon. That was long enough to be able to hear from the captain and his best friend Thomas Hardy that they had been triumphant. They had won at the Battle of Trafalgar. Nelson was an important figure and he was a national hero, and his death somewhat overshadowed the victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. Ordinary seamen broke down and cried when they heard the news, and the nation went into mourning. For various different reasons, Nelson wasn't buried until the following January, so I have covered Nelson's funeral and his final resting place, which is in the crypt at St Paul's, in the tomb originally put aside for Wolsey and then Henry VIII, but Nelson has ended up in there. And if you want to listen to that episode or watch that episode, then I will put the link in the show notes. On the 25th of October 1415 is the Battle of Agincourt. Henry V and his army had invaded France in August of the same year. Now, Henry was claiming the throne of France, but of course France wasn't really up for that, and the best way to settle it, of course, was by having a war. However, the battle so far had favoured the French, and at the time of the Battle of Agincourt, the English were actually in retreat, trying to get back to the English territory still held in Calais in order to regroup. When they met with the French forces, they were outnumbered 6-1. The English army on the day showed much bravery and had the superior strategy, but that wasn't the only reason why this battle was so important. Of the French dead, there were many of the nobility and regional leaders. Consequently, that led to a period of domination by the English. Henry had the superior strategy on the day, and that led to his victory. However, there's some question over his conduct following the battle. Prisoners were usually taken after a battle and ransoms put on their heads in order to return them to their families, but Henry ordered for many of them to be killed. It could have been as an act of revenge against the killing of the young boys who had been guarding the English baggage train at the commencement of the battle, or perhaps because Henry still feared that they were outnumbered. The battle took place on St Crispin's Day, and in Shakespeare's Henry V, he writes a rousing speech that Henry V gave to his troops on the morning of battle. That speech is known to actors as the Crispin speech, but you will recognise the phrase, "we band of brothers," which comes from that speech. Thank you so much to all of you who've already made a donation to help me keep creating free content during this year where I can't run my main business. Obviously, there's not much touring going on, but don't worry if you can't afford to help me out in terms of money at the moment. Of course, I understand that, but you can help me out for free by giving this video the thumbs up and sharing it, and help spread the word about this channel. Thank you so much for joining me for this week in British history. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, then please do give the video the thumbs up, write a comment below and share it with your fellow history-loving friends and help spread the word. I hope you all have a fantastic week. I will see you next time. Take care. The junior school. Oh God, this is hard. Nelson was pivotal. It could have been as an act of revenge again. It could have been as an act of